What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Alright, so those of you who are about my age and older will remember this individual who created a lot of mayhem across the United States during the late 80s and early 1990s. It wasn't known that it was him initially, but he created a lot of he did a lot of evil deeds across this country. Ted Kaczynski, the convicted evildoer known as the Unabomber, was found deceased in his prison cell early today, according to a Federal Bureau of Prisons spokesperson. He was 81 years old. Kaczynski was found unresponsive in his cell around 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time and transported to a local hospital where he was pronounced deceased, according to the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Kaczynski was previously in a maximum security facility in Colorado, but was moved to a federal medical center in Butner, North Carolina in December 2021 due to declining health. Kaczynski, who went nearly 20 years without being apprehended until his arrest in 1996, was considered America's most prolific bomber. Between 1978 and 1995, Kaczynski placed or mailed 16 bombs that deleted the lives of 3 people and injured 24 others, according to authorities. In 1995, actually I thought it had went back to the 80s, but it actually went to the 70s. Alright, so in 1995, before he was identified as the Unabomber, he demanded newspapers publish a long manuscript he had written, saying that the deletings would continue otherwise. Both the New York Times and Washington Post published the 35,000-word manifesto later that year at the recommendation of the U.S. Attorney General and the Director of the FBI. If it hadn't been for the suspicions of his brother and sister-in-law, Kaczynski might never have been caught. Kaczynski's sister-in-law, Linda Patrick, was one of the first to identify Kaczynski as the Unabomber after reading the Unabomber's writing. In an interview with 2020 on ID Presents Homicide, I don't want to say that word, in 2016, Patrick recalled the first time she suspected Kaczynski was responsible for the attacks. She said at the time, "I thought about the families that were bombed. There was one in which the package arrived to the man's home and his little 2-year-old daughter was there. She was almost in the room when he opened the package. Luckily she left and his wife left. And then he was deleted." Patrick said, "And there were others. So I spent those days thinking about those people." She said she recognized familiar sounding ideas in the manuscript from letters her husband David Kaczynski had received from his brother. The family eventually decided to contact the FBI, and on April 3rd, 1995, a 9-man SWAT team apprehended Kaczynski in his cabin in Montana. A plethora of weaponry were found at the cabin, as well as 40,000 handwritten journal pages that included bomb-making experiments and the descriptions of his crimes. Look, I remember this. I remember when this gripped the nation back in the mid-1990s. This is before, 9/11, and this was like the first inklings that, hey, we're not as safe as we think we are. Now, what's interesting is that in the 1990s, we were more concerned about, this is something that's changed in the last 30 years, we were more concerned about domestic terror. We were concerned more about that rather than, foreign. That changed after 9/11, but we were more concerned about domestic because of this, remember the attack that happened in the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta, the Oklahoma City bombing, the initial World Trade Center bombing in 1993. Now, that was tied to overseas entities, but still, you know, the idea was, man, we got people here who really hate this country, and we got to do something about it. But yeah, man, remember Will Ferrell did a spoof about this guy on Saturday Night Live. I remember this was pretty big back then. I do got to say this though. Well, you know what? I'm not going to say this on YouTube. I'm not going to. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll say this. As horrible as human being as this guy was, as horrible as he was, some of the things he warned about with technology, some of the things he said have come to pass. Now, that, of course, does not condone at all any of the things that he's done. The man was a wacko. But this man was once a very brilliant mathematics scientist, a teacher, before he totally went off the deep end. Some of the things that he said about technology and advancements and how they could hurt our society and hurt people in general, a lot of those things that he said were 100% of the money, sadly. But anyway, tell me what you guys think.